This week on the It's a Monkey podcast.
I do believe that in the future we are going to have a number of coins that are used by many people and are equally successful. So I think Ethereum is not a direct competitor to Bitcoin, for example. They cover different fields and they do different things. You can achieve different things with those two coins. I think they will prosper side by side. And I really hope so because I like both Bitcoin and Ethereum. Some of the other ones that are more privacy-centric, for example, like Monero, they will also, I think, prosper side by side because they solve slightly different problem and they have slightly different use case. And I'm sure we'll see a lot more coins that will be implemented well, that will be successful and be used every day.
Good morning, good evening, hello, wherever you are in the world. My name is Kevin Garber. I am the CEO of ManageFlitter and soon to be Manage Social. I am coming to you live from downtown Sydney, Australia. Beautiful, beautiful summer's day today. With me, as always, is my co-host, Kate Frappell, who's the design lead at ManageFlitter and Manage Social. Kate is from Sydney, but she is sitting in Whistler, Canada, in the middle of winter. Don't know why she's done that to herself. Kate, thanks for joining us on today's podcast.
It's good to be back. It's been a few weeks since we've published one.
It's been a few weeks since we've published one. I wanted to try keep it up, but December happened. People went away. It's difficult to find guests. And all sort of, plus a lot going on in ManageFlitter, and we have our day-to-day work to do. So we're a small team. It's hard to keep on going, but we do love to keep these up. If you want to be interviewed on the podcast or someone that would be a great guest, send us an email at podcast@itsamonkey.com. We're always looking for interesting people to interview on the show. Speaking of guests, later on in the show, I did a fantastic interview with Roman Stefanidi, who's the CTO of Independent Reserve. Now, Independent Reserve is one of the significant crypto exchanges in Sydney, Australia, or in Australia, I should say. And as you know, crypto, since our last podcast, it has been all the way up to 20,000 Bitcoin, 20,000 per Bitcoin US. It's come all the way down to 9,500 US per Bitcoin. The world has discovered crypto since our last podcast. So it was really, I really wanted to get someone to talk about crypto, and it was a great chat that I had with Roman yesterday in our office. So stick around for that. But as usual, before we get into the interview, we like to cover a few little news items. That way you can sort of stay in touch with some of the goings on in the social media industry and the tech industry. I have had some feedback from some listeners that they actually really enjoy the news items because it helps them to stay abreast of some of what's going on. Kate, a couple of news items this week. Facebook made quite a surprising announcement, actually. It was quite a surprising announcement that they're actually going to rework the news feed, and they're going to actually sort of weight personal posts higher than business and news information posts. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the newsfeed changes are basically going to affect business pages, or if you have like a page for like a personal brand type thing. And the idea is that they're going to rank person-to-person interaction and posts higher than person-to-page. In this sense, anything that you post on your business page is not going to be as well shown or ranked as highly on other people's news feeds. So this means like businesses are going to have to work extra hard to up their engagement. Lots of commenting, lots of live videos as well are ranked quite highly. But like normal, this is my blog post, everybody have a read, is going to not really be seen.
I was actually very encouraged by this. I'll tell you why. Facebook being a commercial business, they obviously would be very tempted to sell more ads and to sell more, boost posts and things like that. But I think what Facebook realized is that Facebook was really built initially as a social media network. And what was most compelling was the social media network, the human-to-human interaction, connecting with your friends, seeing what they're up to. And actually, in Mark Zuckerberg's announcement around these changes, he did say that research has shown that seeing friends and families' posts led to an increased feeling of well-being, better connected sense of community, whereas seeing news articles, and even they noted even happy animal videos didn't lead to that same sense of satisfaction. So I think what they worried about is Facebook becoming just a neutral to negative emotional experience, which even if they're pumping a lot of ads through may work in the short term, but in the long term, will that eventually squeeze people out? And I think it's a really good move on Facebook's part.
Yeah, for the most part, I tend to agree. And I would like to see more of what my friends and family are sharing than what businesses are sharing. But it's going to take, in my opinion, it's going to take a little while to get people to start sharing again. Because as far as I can tell, like family and friends aren't sharing as much on Facebook as they used to. Mostly because it's getting lost, or they just, it's gotten to the point where they've got so many friends that they don't feel comfortable sharing personal events. So it's going to take a little bit of training to get people back into that mindset where they can share and interact with people like that.
I agree, and I think Facebook need to communicate to people how you can actually target some of your personal posts as well. You don't have to let everyone see all your posts. You can create different buckets of people, and I still think it's definitely Facebook's strength is that virtual community, which I was always a bit disappointed when it just became this big news sharing sort of exercise. And Twitter being a more open platform, I can understand, it makes more sense. People don't want to share particularly private things, but Facebook being a gated closed network, it's a great opportunity to share, to support, to get insight into each other's lives. So I think it's a great thing. By the way, we're experimenting this week on streaming this podcast on Facebook. So if you're not following our Facebook page, just look up It's a Monkey on Facebook. Then you'll get a notification when we stream. And if you're watching, I can see we got a few people watching. We've experimented in the past with streaming on Periscope, which seems to do better with just getting people from, some random people. But Facebook, I see a few people watching. If you're watching, you're welcome to comment. We'll give you a shout out. You're listening to Kevin Garber and Kate Frappell on It's a Monkey podcast. We talk about everything relating to tech, startups, social media, cryptocurrency, you name it. And later on in the show, we're going to be playing an interview that I did with Roman Stefanidi, who is the CTO of Independent Reserve, a cryptocurrency exchange in Sydney, Australia. And we had a great chat about crypto and Bitcoin and all of those exciting bits and pieces. Other news items, Kate, of course, the big conference, CES, happened this year again, as it has for, 20, 30, 40 years. I don't even know how long it's been going on for. And that's always a place where technology companies showcase some of their prototypes. They showcase their new technologies. Tell us a little bit of what were the highlights from CES this year.
So I've got a couple that sort of stood out to me. The first one is, Sennheiser, who traditionally do the headphones, earphones type. They do them really well. So they've come out with a 3D sound bar. They haven't put a name on it yet, but it's sort of their first step into the home audio experience. They're looking at sort of an immersive spatial audio experience that you would usually get from a complicated 9-speaker system, and now it's a sort of a single 4.5-foot box that, you can put in your living room, and it's apparently you got to hear it to believe it.
That's great, because one of the things with all these great sound solutions is you got to set them up and measure it and bits and pieces all over. But it'll be great if you could just dump one piece of equipment in your living room and it just sounds like you're immersed in it all, right?
Yeah, definitely. So that's the first one that was particularly interesting. The second one is I'm not sure if I'm saying this correctly, but Peloton, a treadmill. So it's marked at $4,000. And it's based on a model that they had before, which is sort of like a spinning bicycle type machine. But this one's a treadmill, and it was interesting. The way I sort of read this article was that it's sort of marketed the same way that Apple markets their thing. So it's based on an experience more than the actual physical object. And it comes with a 32-inch monitor, which is like a touch screen, and the users will be able to interact with expert fitness trainers, which are based in Manhattan, and get classes. So you can do, running classes and stuff as well. But the interesting thing is that you can also do yoga and all sorts of other classes through this screen.
It seems interesting. I mean, I think exercise and gamifying exercise is a real big opportunity no one's really cracked it yet, but it's a really fantastic opportunity to gamify. I can see, getting on a treadmill and running against other people and seeing what their sort of pace is, et cetera. So I can certainly see, I mean, $4,000 though is a lot of money.
It is. And on top of that, it's $39 a month to have access to these like virtual classes.
Well, there's all these people that have made a ton of money on crypto. So I don't know, maybe they can do something with that. Tell us some other bits and pieces from CES.
So I've only got one other one, which is a guitar pick shaped device. So it reminds me a bit of like a stone, but it's in the shape of a guitar pick, and that's capable of testing the quality of drinking water, and it examines the electric field around the glass that you're going to drink.
Okay, what's the electric field got to do with anything?
I'm not sure. I haven't read a whole lot on this one. But yeah, that's sort of a more, I guess, humanitarian exhibition to come out of CES.
Yeah, I've got a bottle that's got a built-in filter that's actually incredibly good at filtering out absolutely almost everything. I mean, quality of water is actually a big thing in many, many countries. So that would be really cool if you could actually, because sometimes I guess there's probably a lot of safe water that people are quite fearful of because they don't know. So it actually makes sense to have some technology that can actually just assess if you're somewhere and you can assess if the water from the stream is okay or not. I'd love to find out more about that. What's that called?
Lishtot. So Lishtot.
Okay, interesting. Well, we'll check that out. And yeah, CES it's a great, if you just have a look at blog posts on announcements at CES. I saw there were some companies that came out with some new battery packs.
There was a few sort of robotic, like Sony have their new little dog, which actually came out last year, but was a bit of a flop apparently. So now it's sort of made progress in terms of being like a robotic pet, I guess.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd love to go to CES one day and to see all the latest and all the geek bits and pieces. And apparently, it's very, very impressive to go there. Maybe we can even convince them one day to fly us out there, and we'll do some coverage for them. So if anyone's listening from CES, count me in for next year. We'll spend the day doing clips and shows and all the rest. So yeah, it sounds exciting. So you're listening to the It's a Monkey podcast. This is episode 111. So you have 111 podcasts to listen to up until now. If you really want to do that to yourself, we try to broadcast every week. We're going to ramp that up again this year. We love to hear from you. You can tweet us. You can email us. You can pitch us to be interviewed. And we're going to take a short break. And after the break, we're going to play the interview that I did yesterday with Roman Stefanidi, who's the CTO of Independent Reserve. We speak about blockchain, crypto, Ethereum, the banking industry and crypto. We went all over the place. It was really a fantastic interview. So stick around. That's coming up after this break.
Hi, my name is Joe Pinto. I'm the Business Operations Manager here at ManageFlitter. Did you know that Twitter can be a powerful social selling platform? But the first step to effective social selling on Twitter is to grow your Twitter account with high-quality niche followers. For example, let's say you are an online bicycle retailer. ManageFlitter could help you grow your Twitter account by helping you find and follow people who have the word cyclist in their bio. The more targeted your search is, the higher likelihood these Twitter accounts will follow you back. We have millions of users, literally, that have used ManageFlitter's search, sort, and filtering tools to grow their account with the right followers. This has provided them with a solid base to kickstart their social selling. Feel free to drop by manageflitter.com to trial our product or email us at contact@manageflitter.com to schedule an obligation-free walkthrough.
You're back with It's a Monkey podcast. My name is Kevin Garber. This is the first episode for 2018 as we scream on into the new year, sort of almost the end of January. I'm very excited to say in the studio in Sydney, and if you're a regular listener to the podcast, you'll know that most of our guests are actually via Skype. So I always get quite happy when I manage to drag someone into our studio in downtown Sydney. So I managed to drag in Roman Stefanidi, who's the CTO of Independent Reserve. Now, if you're an Australian, you probably are familiar with Independent Reserve. Or if you're an Australian interested in crypto, you would be familiar with Independent Reserve. If you international, maybe or maybe not. But Roman is the CTO of Independent Reserve, which is a cryptocurrency exchange. Is that how you guys describe yourself?
Absolutely. Digital currency exchange. Sounds a little bit less scary for first-time users.
The word crypto is definitely, it's one of these words that can mean a lot of things, right?
Absolutely, yes. So digital currency is how we'd like to describe ourselves.
So we were actually in touch probably even before the craziness of December. I mean, you guys, the last, 6 to 8 weeks, it just have just been absolute mad for you guys.
Yes, absolutely. I sleep on Sundays usually. That's it. No, it's been really crazy. We've been growing tenfold almost every week.
Wow.
And we've had thousands of users sign up every day since the craziness started. We're really struggling to keep up with demand of users opening their accounts on our exchange.
Well,
So
we
it's been
really
crazy.
appreciate you making the time to come in and have a chat to us. And as we said just before the interview, people, I get approached, and I'm not even directly in the space, by acquaintances asking me all sorts of questions. People are absolutely intrigued by this thing of crypto and Bitcoin, even though Bitcoin's been around since, 2009?
2009, yes.
2009. And I would imagine your role as CTO, is probably absolutely crucial because exchanges, timing is so important, right? And technical issues that, a lot of the other exchanges like Coinbase and Kraken, yeah, one of the San Francisco ones. I feel for them actually. They have suffered. They have had serious technical outages over the last couple of months, right?
Absolutely. Kraken has been down pretty much the whole weekend, last weekend. We were doing our deployment at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And we were reading just their blog and feeling their pain because they were supposed to have a 4-hour outage,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it ended up to be
I saw that.
2 days or something like that. And we really felt for them because it's a really, really tough industry to be in, especially one that has grown tenfold overnight, essentially.
The way I explain it to friends, if you're a non-technical person listening to this interview, the way I explain scaling issues to people, I think the good and bad thing of Facebook and Google and Twitter is that they've done such a good job of scaling their technology that the expectation of people is just incredible. But the people don't realize that scaling technology is, even with all the cloud services, to scale fast is really difficult, and especially when large amounts of data involved and large amounts of users. The way I explain it to people is making yourself a sandwich is simple. Making it for a friend, you've got to start thinking a little bit. Making it for a dinner party of 4 or 5, well, you've got to plan in advance. When you start doing it to 20, 30, or when you go to a conference where there's 500 people need to eat at once, you've got to really, and that's sort of similar to scaling issues with tech. It's having an exchange for one person is not the same as just then multiplying it out by tens of thousands of people, and that's scaling issues which are not simple to solve.
Absolutely. You get really new challenges coming with that, and some problems that you've never had to solve, especially because this industry has really grown really fast, probably faster than Facebook when Facebook was going through it.
Well, especially over the last year, right?
Over the last, I'd say 2-3 months,
Yeah.
It's been really crazy. So that's why everyone's struggling in this industry. And the other thing is running an exchange, especially one that is really geared towards security, is really hard to scale that because
you can't take shortcuts.
You can't take shortcuts.
You can't hack it.
Absolutely. So we encrypt everything. Everything in the database is encrypted, which is why when you try to scale and you get tenfold users, your CPU usage goes up because you have to decrypt things, and it's a nightmare. But I think we have the right team and the right architecture in place that, we are ready to probably grow another 10 to 100x without any major issues. So we'll see how we go.
It's always a nice problem to have. But also being the CEO of a technical company, and where we've also gone through phases of our own technical challenges, I definitely feel for people when they're caught in the middle of the customers and the technology challenges. And sometimes you just can't compress time. You just there's just nothing for love or money. You just can't compress time. Are you comfortable talking about some of the stack that you guys use, some of the technology?
Yeah, sure, we can do that. Yep.
I mean, what do you guys use? AWS or?
We're on cloud service provider.
Right.
And we use Microsoft Stack for most of our stuff.
Okay, great. I mean, I've been using you guys for a few months. I've definitely haven't had any glitches, which has been great. I like the approach that you guys have to security. I like the emails that I get on logins and all of that. Now, you guys have what? Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, and that's it. That's it. Now, I'm quite intrigued by why certain exchanges choose the coins that they do. I know there's some other Australian exchanges, they do Bitcoin only, right? And then you have this big Chinese exchange, which has just gone
everything.
I mean, I read an article, and I'm happy to hear you guys are doing well too, but I read an article that after 6 months, their market cap is 2 billion and they're already profitable. Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. But they've got every single coin. I mean, you look at their page of coins that they have, it's just pages. So talk to me a little bit. What's the thinking? For example, why haven't you added Litecoin or Neo? Or how does it work from the exchange side of things?
So we're about quality rather than quantity.
Mm-hmm.
So for us to add a new coin, we would have to be very comfortable that it's a stable coin, that there are plenty of APIs for us to check addresses and transactions against, that they don't go down. Those are some of the considerations that we look at from technical point of view, because we really don't want our customers to wait 10 hours for their deposits to come in or withdrawal to go out. And even with Bitcoin and Ethereum, especially with Ethereum in the last few months, we've been seeing some scaling issues and some slowness in the network and some nodes going down and being out of sync. So those are technical challenges for an exchange. So we value our customer experience on the 3 coins that we offer over the other altcoins that they can buy, because we don't want to be in the situation where we're really struggling to support any deposits or withdrawals on those chains or any issues that those chains might have. So that's, I guess, a technical consideration. From a business consideration, we haven't wanted to choose some of the coins that are more dodgy, I should say, right, or riskier. So we are looking at putting new coins on. Some of the popular ones, some that have been around for a while, maybe like Ripple and Litecoin. So that's something in the pipeline, but we want to do them right.
What do you think about the whole politics around which is the real Bitcoin? And there's this group of people that think Bitcoin is the only crypto that's actually a real crypto and providing value, and all the other altcoins are really just sooner or later it's the tide's going to go out and everyone's going to see that they really offering no value.
Look, there are some coins that offer very, very little value. And
Dogecoin.
I won't.
Well,
name
I can tell you why I can mention Dogecoin, because one of the co-founders of Dogecoin is an Australian chap, Jackson Palmer, and he's been on the show a couple of times. Right. And I don't think he's involved with Doge anymore. But as Doge has gone right up, he's actually just said, "This is crazy. Like, be careful. This is like, I don't support this." So that's why he's comfortable saying it. So I'm comfortable saying that.
Yeah, I think Dogecoin is not very different technically from Bitcoin. And I guess Bitcoin Cash is not that much different from Bitcoin. Bitcoin Cash has gotten a little bit of popularity and usage because there's been a lot of backing for it from really large guys. But some of the other coins, they're not used for anything. Nobody accepts them. They have very little tech that's different from Bitcoin or Ethereum, so they might struggle. But I do believe that in the future we are going to have a number of coins that are used by many people and are equally successful. So I think Ethereum is not a direct competitor to Bitcoin, for example. They cover different fields and they do different things. You can achieve different things with those two coins. I think they will prosper side by side, and I really hope so because I like both Bitcoin and Ethereum. Some of the other ones that are more privacy-centric, for example, like Monero, they will also, I think, prosper side by side because they solve slightly different problem and they have slightly different use case. And I'm sure we'll see a lot more coins that will be implemented well, that will be successful and be used every day.
Let's talk about for a moment. I'd be curious to know if the banks in Australia have reached out to you guys, because I know that inherently I would imagine there's a slightly antagonistic relationship inherently, because in a way, part of the value proposition is to upend the whole financial services industry in general, and the banks may be a little bit just annoyed by that, and also the fact that Bitcoin comes from, there's this mystique around it of the Silk Road and all that, and money laundering and all that. I mean, how has the response been from the banks in Australia generally?
Extremely negative.
Really?
Pretty much every single bank hates this industry. Mm-hmm. They really don't like it. And I guess it's a risk profile thing for them, mm-hmm. but especially in the last few months, mm-hmm. banks have been very, very tough on Bitcoin exchanges and customers that use Bitcoin exchanges. We've had reports of customers reporting that they had troubles depositing into our bank accounts because mm-hmm. their banks have been blocking the transactions.
And what's the justification? I mean, what do the banks say when you contact them?
Look, we don't really like talking to banks. Mm-hmm.
But we still need them, right?
Well, absolutely, yes, we do. We can't operate without a bank account.
We still all get paid in fiat currency, and we still need to pay our taxes in fiat currency.
Yeah. So the banks are very cautious about this industry because it's not regulated yet. The regulation is coming, and we're really pro-regulation. We can't wait for it, essentially, because we hope that will solve some of the problems that we've had with banks, and that banks will be a little bit more open to work in the industry.
Don't you think, though, that regulation will defeat the purpose of some of the promise of cryptos in terms of having these deregulated, distributed, decentralized systems? I mean, I suppose it depends on the type of regulation, right? You don't want regulation that's just going to constrict it all.
Absolutely. We're talking about regulating digital currency exchanges.
Right.
Not regulating Bitcoin
Gotcha.
or digital currency itself. And it's important to regulate digital currency exchanges because there have been few dodgy operators.
Mt.
Gox, maybe some other ones. Mm-hmm. But we do want to protect consumers as well, because we've started to see a lot of your mom and dad investors or even users of digital currencies pouring hundreds of thousands of dollars into this space. So we want to have frameworks to protect those.
So Coinbase, which is one of the big exchanges in the US, which interestingly I saw, you're probably aware of this, that Westpac invested $25 million or so into Coinbase.
Right, okay.
Yeah, as an equity position.
I think I heard something like that,
yeah,
yes.
Which I find really interesting. But Coinbase mention how they store their private keys, or someone, I mean, I'm not sure if it was them themselves, but they literally have private keys in safety deposit boxes spread across the states, which just sounds crazy to me. I mean, it makes sense from a risk mitigation point of view. Now, the private key is obviously probably what keeps you up at night. I mean, that's the crux of... You're looking very calm, so maybe not. I mean, what can you share with us about the private keys? Because unless people take their private keys and have hardware wallets, essentially, in a way, you custodian of their assets, right? I mean,
absolutely, yes.
And they are trusting you that when they call upon that, you're going to give that back to them.
So we store about 90% of our digital assets offline, cold storage. Mm-hmm. It's on encrypted laptop, encrypted file. It's in a vault. It's accessible by 2 out of 3 directors that have to do a multi-signature to withdraw the Bitcoins. So we're very comfortable that our cold storage is extremely secure. The hot wallet also, the system was designed to manage the private keys for the hot wallet. So they're encrypted by the server. It's also double encrypted by hardware security module. So we can't actually get the private keys for the hot wallet either. It's extremely, extremely difficult. So we've had few cases where people have requested private keys for their deposit wallets, and because they've sent some ICOs there or something like that, especially for Ethereum, a lot of ICOs. And we have to deny that because we can't actually access that. We've built our system specifically to stop anyone from, including administrators, from easily obtaining those private keys. So the system manages that, and it's totally hands-off. And we're very comfortable that it's pretty secure.
So what's your policy? I mean, do you encourage your customers to have their own hardware wallets? Do you stay neutral? Do you not have a policy? I mean, out there on Twitter, everyone's saying unless you control your private keys, you're not controlling your Bitcoin or your crypto. What's your view as a company in terms of your customers around that issue?
Absolutely. I mean, I keep my Bitcoins on independent reserve because I'm so comfortable with how we manage private keys.
Right.
But I guess you are right. If you want to control your Bitcoins, you should have them in an offline wallet, whether it's a paper wallet, cold storage, your Trezor. It's the only way that you actually control the Bitcoins. By the same token, if you wanted to sell your Bitcoins or if you're a regular trader, it is a little bit inconvenient to have to transfer back and forth from your cold storage. If you wanted to, say, sell really quickly, it will take you, an hour or so to get Bitcoins off your cold storage into an exchange.
I mean, there's the one aspect which is the technical risk, but there's also the business risk. I mean, I don't know who independent reserve is, and if there's a business risk and you guys sort of suddenly tomorrow are all gone, it's gone, and I think that's where maybe regulation can at least provide some confidence that there's somebody that has just checked that whoever's set up as an exchange, there's some sort of liquidity, there's some sort of solvency there, because people can get bitten.
Absolutely. So Austrac is going to regulate this space very, very shortly. And I guess all of the digital currency exchanges in Australia will have to be on the register, which will be publicly accessible. So people will be able to look up whether Independent Reserve is on the register, whether they're regulated by Austrac. And that's coming very, very soon.
So I notice you guys don't accept cash deposits from like a branch deposit. Is that a decision from you guys, or it's a bank, or both?
It's a decision from us.
Right.
We have set our bar very, very, very high for KYC and AML policies, know your customer and anti-money laundering. So we verify all our users before they can deposit or withdraw fiat currencies. And this is because we want to be really above board of any regulation that would come in. And we definitely are the leading exchange that is doing this in Australia. So our KYC and AML policies are definitely the best in the country. And this is because we wanted to be ready for any regulation and because we didn't want to have any trouble at all with any banks. This also attracts more of institutional investors. So we've been seeing those talking to us and coming on board as well, which is really, really good.
Great. So, I mean, your business model is you obviously, just like equity exchanges, there's a sort of transaction fee. But do you make on spreads a bit as well, or you don't? So
No, we don't.
So if I buy at X rates, it's not, you haven't bought it at a bit of a discount and you get a bit of premium on top of that.
Absolutely not. We're a open order book exchange. So when you're buying if you're buying Bitcoin, cash, Ethereum, you're actually buying from another trader on the other side. And we only take the 0.5% fee on that.
And that order book, those trades, are they from a group of exchanges, or are they only from Independent Reserve?
No, they're from other users like yourself.
But they're not necessarily Independent Reserve customers, right?
Yes, they are. They're all 100% our customers.
They all are?
The whole order book
Right.
is all of our customers.
So do most exchanges work like that? Like they all...
All the order book exchanges do.
Right.
For example, CoinJar doesn't. So
Right.
they buy Bitcoins from another exchange,
Right.
and then they put their premium on, and then they sell it to a
Right.
customer. So they're really a Bitcoin shop rather than an exchange.
Gotcha.
Yes.
And CoinJar is the other, if you're listening, you haven't heard of them, they're another Australian exchange of sorts. That's interesting. And you guys have been around since when?
2013.
Okay, so
Quite a while.
a little while. I mean, it's the last few months must have just blown any historicals out of the water, right?
Absolutely, yes.
And how do you manage risk around? I mean, do you get concerned that there'll be a run on the exchange ever in terms of everyone wanting cashing out money at some stage? Or
Look, an exchange, I guess, makes money on volatility.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you're buying in or cashing out, we take a small fee and that's it. So I guess we're not scared of that.
Mm-hmm.
If Bitcoin was to go down, which it has in the last week or so,
Mm-hmm.
we are not really concerned because we believe that digital currencies have a really bright future. Whether it's Bitcoin or something else, it's going to stay and it's going to prosper and going to be used widely. That's what we believe. So
How complicated is it to set up an exchange I would imagine there's technical constraints and there's also, you would need some sort of liquidity and be able to build the book. I would imagine it's being a two-sided market. It's a little bit tricky to get going, right?
absolutely. Just from a technical side, it's extremely difficult. The challenges, I mean, I haven't slept in a really long time, a full night.
Right.
We've been working really around the clock.
Right.
And it is very difficult we're starting from managing private keys, cold storage, to managing our bank accounts and accounting, to actually running a 24/7 system. I mean, we have API that's open to the public. So we have bots that run 24/7. They never sleep. We go down for an hour to do maintenance. We get hundreds of emails.
I know the feeling around that one. Yes.
Yeah. So it's very difficult. Mentally, it's very difficult. And you have to overcome a lot of challenges.
What's the size of your technical team?
We have 5 senior developers.
Mm-hmm.
Myself, who runs the team.
Mm-hmm.
We have a technical guy who runs our support staff. And we have about 6 support people.
Are you guys funded or self-funded or?
Self-funded.
Fantastic.
Well, at the beginning, there were some investors. But at the moment, we're making revenue
Yeah,
in the positives.
That's great. And are you okay to authenticate customers from overseas, or they need to be Australians?
No, we do. We accept overseas customers. There are some jurisdictions that we don't really like to work with due to some banking restrictions, but most are okay.
And I mean, in your view, is the whole money laundering, is it a real issue? I mean, or is it just like cash, or it's just like all the other systems face? It's not better or worse.
I don't think it's better or worse, but I still do think that 99% of money laundering happens through either cash or the banking system.
Yeah. Earlier today, I saw in the news they arrested some Australian guys in Serbia with hundreds of millions of dollars worth of cash, and they actually took photos of this physical in about 10 different currencies. So I would imagine there's still some advantages to the cash. Any resources for people to check out? I mean, I've got my own Twitter list of people that I'm following that are, and I think Core is pretty good, and there's Reddit. Any other resources for people that just really want to stay across what?
I guess Andreas, the Bitcoin God, is the one that most people should listen to or check out. He's really, really interesting.
He's been traveling the world, just giving free workshops on Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if you come across any of his talks in Sydney, definitely go and visit. He's an excellent speaker and very, very interesting. He has some absolutely fantastic ideas as to where digital currencies are going. and they're very, very interesting.
I've actually seen him on Twitter, and they did a big campaign to raise money for him recently because he hasn't really made direct money. But I actually haven't watched any of his talks, but I'll check them out.
He's been number one Bitcoin evangelist, I think, in the tech space anyway.
So one thing I'm curious about, going a little bit back to the bank side of things, to me, it seems like the most obvious thing for banks to do is to have a online wallet for cryptos, right? What they've been selling for years is trust. They're in the trust game. People already trust the banks. Charge $10 for an online wallet to store your cryptos, and unless I'm missing something, it just seems probably technically in the scheme of things, it would be relatively sort of doable for them.
I think the banks would really struggle with this because of their sizes. Look, to be honest, I think it is a lot easier to secure a bank than a Bitcoin exchange.
Really?
I think so, yeah.
Because it's centralized.
Because there's no essentially money as such. If you have $50 billion or $50 million in your bank account, say, there isn't a pile of $50 million in some safe that somebody has to guard, that somebody can break into and take. But you do have that with a Bitcoin exchange. So that's where the challenge is. If you're a bank, you just keep some numbers in a database. If you're a Bitcoin exchange, you actually keep Bitcoins somewhere in a safe, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I'd never had considered that. So, and any other interesting companies or services or products in the crypto space that people should look at, whether it's for research or tooling or even trade. I mean, you mentioned some of the hardware wallets. I think I've got a Trezor.
Trezor and NanoS is really popular as well. Those are really good wallets to have. They do really large range of currencies as well, which is really handy. One of the things that I would really like to mention is people thinking about getting into this space really should take time and educate themselves.
I agree.
Whether it's on starting with something as simple as Wikipedia or reading some material online or going to some trusted exchanges and reading what they have to say. We sell a book that was written by one of the co-founders a while ago. It's a little bit older now, but still a really interesting read. And really encourage people to understand the differences between Bitcoin and Ethereum and Ripple, because a lot of people have been getting into this space and buying Ripple simply because it's $2.50.
Because it made 13,000% over the last 12 months, right?
Yes, but what does that actually mean? What is Ripple? What are you actually getting? How does it work? Why is it valuable? Why is it not valuable? The same for Bitcoin.
And they're pretty different, right? Ripple doesn't have a public blockchain like Bitcoin does. So they're quite significantly different.
They are very significantly different, yes. So this is one of the interesting things that I've come across. Most people who I have spoken to who thought that Bitcoin was a pyramid scheme or a scam didn't actually take time to read anything about it or educate themselves. They simply heard about it and assumed that this technology cannot work, cannot exist, because they can't even imagine how it would work. So those are the types of people that are not getting into Bitcoin, and they should really read up about it before, talking negative or speaking their mind about it.
Yeah, I agree. There's some fantastic resources, YouTube talks, podcasts. I mean, is there any? I've always been joking on this podcast that there's only like 6 people in the world that really understand from the full stack of Bitcoin. Really, I mean, is it that when I read some of these articles about some of these, I mean, and I'm relatively technical. I'm not a developer, but I'm technical to say I'm relatively technical. Like I'm confident enough to say. I mean, how many people really understand it right to the deep level? It gets incredibly, incredibly complex, right?
Absolutely, yes. Probably you're right. Probably not 6, but
I'm sure you understand a little bit more than I do.
Not 6, but not that many. I think anyone who is interested in this should read the original white paper by Satoshi Nakamoto. It's a very short read and very interesting, and it doesn't go into that much technical detail, but it's deep enough. I guess Bitcoin utilizes so many technologies and so much maths that you really have to be a genius to really understand it all. But understanding how blockchain functions, public, private key, cryptography, things like that, hashing, I guess is also a little bit too technical for most users. So it depends really how deep you want to go.
Yeah, and I think things like public and private key is actually relatively easy to understand for anyone, even just conceptually, and it's so clever.
Yes.
And it's been around forever. I mean, I remember learning about it when email first came out and PGP and all of that sort of side of things. It's what I like about the crypto space is that so many people were critical that it's useless learning maths at school and uni, and suddenly this whole world is, and sure there was the internet, but it was still a bit obfuscated there, but now crypto, it's just in your face that it's maths, right? It's really like hardcore maths that's just driving this whole sort of shift.
Absolutely. But I think just like most people don't need to understand how email works or how SMS or telephones or now WhatsApp works, most people won't need to understand how digital currencies work to use them in the future. So
it won't harm though, right?
Won't harm, absolutely, yes.
I mean, I think a lot of people today, a lot of people in their 20s don't understand. I mean, probably haven't even heard of TCP/IP.
Yes, exactly.
Or packet switching or things like but it's there the whole time. It doesn't harm, especially if you work in the industry. Any interesting, on a final note, any interesting coins or ICOs? I mean, you've mentioned some of them that you mentioned, the one with the privacy one, I forget the... Monero, people, and there's obviously Neo, which is a little bit like an Ethereum for ICOs. Any other quirky coins or ICOs that are, we're not recommending you buy them, but just interesting to look at?
Look, we look at so many new ones. We talk to a few ICOs, maybe once a week.
Really? Australian ones?
Australian ones, a few overseas, mainly Aussie ones. To be honest, I can't really recommend one. It would be really unfair to anyone.
But start out with checking out some of those, Monero and Neo. And have you guys ever thought about wrapping a coin into your own exchange? I believe some of them have done that, right?
Yes. I think you're talking about
it's BNB.
Tether.
Right.
So Tether is pegged to US dollar. So its exchange rate is 1-to-1 to US dollar. And the idea behind Tether is a company holds US dollars for every Tether that they issue. And then you can exchange Tether for your dollar, essentially, at any time. And then you can obviously transfer Tether to other exchanges that trust that Tether will be exchanged for $1.
And there's also the BNB coin as well, which is with the exchange. Is it Bitfinex? I'll just fire it up quickly. That's their own. They're an exchange, and they got their own coin. I
think that
as
was
well.
Because they lost some of their customers' funds, and then they issued the coin instead of the funds to be later redeemed for dollars when they make their money back. Something like that.
Binance,
right.
Not familiar with that?
It's one of the largest exchanges. They do almost every coin.
They do almost every coin, but they've got BNB, which is their own coin, which I'm trying to get my head around how that fits into their picture as well.
There's so many new ICOs coming out. It's really, really hard to keep up. As I said, we talk to about one a week, Aussie ones, ranging from some less interesting ones to some very, very interesting ones. Yes. There's definitely a right way and a wrong way to do an ICO. And again, before jumping into an ICO, everyone should do their due diligence.
Don't just give people your money. Please,
Exactly.
whatever you do, don't just give people your money. You might not see it again. Don't get carried away by these fancy numbers of 13,000% and take. And I'm definitely not licensed to give financial advice, but you can lose everything. So just be careful. Just be careful. Yeah, it's the dopamine. It's people are just drunk on the dopamine at the moment.
Absolutely,
They
yes.
just love humans love just seeing numbers go up, right? Everyone and they love feeling smart in a bull market. That's why I think these corrections are really good. They're really healthy, just to really remind people just that you can't defy the laws of physics, and the laws of physics is not just go up in perpetuity forever type thing.
Well, it keeps the guys who understand something about the market and understand the technology and I guess have the balls in the market, in the game, which is a good thing.
Although the day traders provide liquidity, so we need them. I'm more of a value investor. But anyway, Roman, it's been a fascinating chat. I wish you guys well. I'm a happy customer of Independent Reserve, so people can check you guys out at independentreserve.com. I've been using you guys for a while. And it's interesting to see that they don't have to be in Australia, so I wasn't aware of that. Somehow I suppose I've dabbled in Coinbase just for an experiment, and I'm not based there, so I suppose there aren't really jurisdictional issues.
Well, interesting. Coinbase doesn't actually have an Australian bank account, so you can't cash out from Coinbase.
You can send Bitcoins in.
You can buy Bitcoins from Australia. You can withdraw Bitcoins. And most people then realize that, I can't sell Bitcoins on Coinbase and then transfer the money to Australia. So they end up withdrawing Bitcoins to Independent Reserve from Coinbase and then selling on our exchange, which is actually good for us.
Yeah, so it's good on you guys. You got in the game and you stuck with it. And I've been chatting to Roman Stefanidi. Are you on Twitter? No?
Yes, but no.
Yes, but no.
I'm silent Twitter user.
Okay, you're one of the...
You can follow Independent Reserve on Twitter.
Yep.
I will give you a link after.
I've noticed you guys. I follow you guys there. And it was really great having you on the show. I wish you guys continued success, and I hope you get some sleep, and I hope you guys continue to have a nice smooth sailing technical path as opposed to some of the other bits and pieces. So yeah, I mean, you're obviously doing something right to make it look like it's all humming along. I think people underestimate. I mean, the complexity of systems is just really quite something these days. And to make it all look so easy and so nothing's going wrong, there's a lot of effort behind that. So I really appreciate you coming in from North Sydney into the Sydney CBD for chatting with us on the podcast. And good luck with it all.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks.
The It's a Monkey podcast is brought to you by CheckDog. Use CheckDog to easily review and monitor your website for spelling errors, broken links, and broken images, all with the push of one button. CheckDog can also automatically monitor your website and notify you of newly introduced spelling errors. Go to checkdog.com/podcast to receive 50% off your first month subscription. Checkdog.com, helping the world's leading websites keep their content error-free.
So, Kate, as I mentioned earlier on in the podcast, when we did our podcast before this, it was just before the storm was about to hit in terms of Bitcoin and crypto, and all hell was unleashed when Bitcoin just started to surge all the way to 20,000. I mean, we've been talking about Bitcoin on the show for a long time. I think our first Bitcoin-related interview was in 2014. So quite a long time ago, and we've been touching on it a little bit every now and then. And but really, I mean, December was quite something else, and even the way it sort of everyone discovered Bitcoin, and half of my yoga friends started contacting me wanting to know about Bitcoin. So it was interesting, just the difference that a few weeks can make.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember when I was in Sydney in November, yourself and everyone else in the office was, "No, you got to get on this Bitcoin wagon." And then, the last couple of days I've noticed it's apparently dropped down to below 10,000 now.
Yeah, I think it's come up a little bit. Now, it depends when people listen to this podcast, but today what's the date today? If it's the 19th of January, Friday the 19th, it's come up a little bit. It's over 11,000 US as of today, but it bounces around all over the place.
And where was it in December?
December it peaked at nearly 20,000.
Okay.
So, So, I mean, we don't give financial advice on the show, and be very careful with what you do with your money, as we mentioned. But, depending on your view on Bitcoin, I'm very bullish on it. I think it's a good buying opportunity. But the chat with Roman was really interesting, and there were a lot of areas that were interesting. Particularly, I find that the banking sector, the challenges they're having with the banking sector, quite ironic, actually. I mean, and as I mentioned in the podcast, I'm still surprised that the banks haven't somehow found a way to get involved with all of this. Maybe they still will, but they seem to be giving the exchanges quite a rough time.
Yeah, you made a point as well about Westpac. I'm still a bit confused. What have they done? They've bought into Bitcoin, have they?
No, they've bought into an exchange. So a lot of big companies, they'll take an equity position in other companies that they may have a strategic interest in. So there's a very big American exchange called Coinbase that's been had a little bit of controversy around it for a whole variety of reasons that I won't get into. But it's been around for a little while. They've raised a huge amount of money. They've raised a huge amount of equity funding. And Westpac were one of the people that put money into Coinbase, which is interesting because, they're an American company and Westpac's an Australian bank. I'm having a look at the Westpac site. I just stumbled onto this fact. But I'm looking at the Westpac site. They've got a portfolio of a few startups that they've invested in. Now, being a conservative, quote-unquote, bank, it's still pretty impressive they've invested in these startups. I'm trying to have a look at, just confirm that. Here we go, 2015. So a little while back, Westpac invested in Coinbase. So anyway, you can Google it. They've invested quite a bit of money. I mean, some of these big companies have an investment arm, so they'll allocate a chunk of money to this investment arm and say, go invest in strategic companies that we could maybe benefit on or form a relationship, and maybe down the track we can buy. But a lot of people don't know that Westpac have an interest in Coinbase. So, I mean, I think Roman is probably having an experience that's a once-in-a-lifetime career experience, to be really at the cutting edge of an industry that is pushing so hard and it's a seismic shift, just like the internet was sort of between, 97 and 2001. It's these real sort of bursts of innovation and seismic shifts don't happen that often in our lifetime.
Yeah, definitely. I think he did say on there he only sleeps on Sundays.
I have to say, he looked very calm and relaxed and well rested. So, I think some of these good CTOs and tech leads, etc., the ones that rise to the top are actually quite measured. You're dealing with a huge amount of stress. I know even Ricky, who's the tech lead for ManageFlitter, he's a very calm, measured chap. And I think you have to be, because panic's our worst enemy and the stakes are high, and you have to be thinking clearly around these projects. Otherwise, you can really make things worse. So Roman definitely seemed like he's rolling with the punches, and they seem to be doing pretty well. And it's in a way, it's a nice problem to have to try to manage all the new users that you have.
Yeah, definitely. So have you heard of any new interesting ways people are using cryptocurrency? Since we've sort of talked about, I think it's called ScalaMed with Tal Rupke.
So ScalaMed was using the blockchain, not really cryptocurrency. So It was using the blockchain aspect of it, which is the distributed database essentially. So there's no cryptocurrency component per se. So there's the blockchain technology, which underpins a lot of the cryptocurrency. And I do encourage you, if it's, as Roman made the points, you don't need to understand the absolute ins and outs of cryptocurrency to get involved with it. You can just have a big picture understanding of it, just like we mentioned. People, you don't understand the none of us understand the inner workings of our computer, but we know how to use them and how it can add value. It's a similar thing with cryptocurrency. So There's tons on YouTube. I have a personal list. If you follow me on Twitter, I've got a Twitter list called Blockchain, where I follow some interesting sorts. There's on Quora, there's some great answers. YouTube is full of bits and pieces. And dabble with it. It's, in my opinion, it's here to stay. I've always got to be careful when I put things on the record, right? In a year we could be talking, it could all sort of been gone. Anyway, I certainly think in some shape, manner or form, a lot of the big investment companies in Silicon Valley have come out and said they're only focusing on cryptocurrency businesses from here on out. So I think I've mentioned before on the podcast, two incredibly smart people years ago were just talking about blockchain and Bitcoin and were saying we got to keep a close eye on it. One of them was Mark Andreessen, who's the founder of one of the first web browser, Netscape. He's a very successful venture capital investor in Silicon Valley, billionaire. Probably a few times over, a super smart guy. He was been talking about it for ages. And of course, the previous co-host of this podcast, James Peter, who's also the previous co-founder and technical lead of ManageFlitter, I still tease him now that he said Bitcoin is going to be a thing when 2014, and he bought a few, but unfortunately he sold too early. So, I think in doing research around everything in life, there's a lot of smart people, and more than ever, we can access the opinions of these smart people. And sometimes research and getting an opinion is just about finding these smart people and actually listening to them, because there are people that probably have 5-10 times the capacity in this specific area and understanding than we do. So I don't have any particular, tips other than to dabble and play and put a little bit of gambling money inside the cryptos. I also learn about something called value investing as opposed to trading. So value investing is finding good assets, buying them and holding them. I think the mistake that a lot of people make is they don't have patience, and they like to buy and they like to sell. Humans, it's all about everything's psychology in life, right, Kate?
Very true.
Everything, life is about managing your own psychology. It's really an exercise in that. And the more we get to understand that and the more we get to manage that, the more we can sort of succeed, in my opinion. So, and yeah, I have been nagging you to get into it for a little while. So,
still haven't convinced me.
No, why not?
I'm not too sure. I think number one, I just haven't had the time to sort of do some proper reading. Would be my biggest reason. It is on my list to look into it a little bit more and just see how it goes.
I think you're a very measured person as well, and crypto volatility and craziness and the cowboyness, it doesn't suit your personality.
No. That doesn't feel safe.
Yeah, I know you. I can understand that, but it's just that volatility is very visible. Even in property, there's volatility, but it's not as visible because you only get to know the value of your property truly when you sell it, right?
True. Or if you rent it out, and then eventually, then you get the return event in time.
Yes. Well, I've reached out to a couple of other people that are into crypto and blockchain, and we'll have them on the show. Some of them are contrarians. We have chatted to people in the past on the podcast as well that are less bullish about it. I like to canvass all views. But that's it for episode 111, Lucky 111. We've enjoyed this podcast as always. Please subscribe, leave us feedback on iTunes, tell one friend about it. We love doing it. We know that you're listening. We know that you're out there. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Facebook. We also put our shows up on YouTube. We're trying to do everything right. But thanks so much for listening. So from myself, Kevin Garber, and Kate Frappell, we will catch you maybe next week or the week after, but we'll try come back to you as soon as possible.